The village doctor pressed 2 fingers against the old man's neck and shook his head slowly. Musa's body lay crumpled on the dusty floor of his shop, his chest barely rising, his lips blue like the sky before a storm. Women gathered at the doorway, whispering prayers. Children peeked through cracks in the wooden walls. Everyone knew this was the end. The poor shoemaker who had given away everything he owned was about to die alone, forgotten, with nothing but the smell of old leather and broken dreams. But then, in the distance, an engine roared. Dust clouds rose from the dirt road. A black SUV, sleek and expensive, rolled into the village like a message from another world. The door opened. A woman stepped out, her heels clicking against the ground, her face calm, but her eyes wet with tears. She walked straight to the shop, pushed through the crowd, and knelt beside Musa. "Move," she said firmly. "This man is not dying today." No one recognized her, but she recognized him. And what happened next would remind the village of a single truth. Kindness never dies, it only waits to return. If you believe that one act of goodness can change a life forever, stay with this story until the very end. You won't believe what happens next. Musa had been lying on that cold floor for hours. His neighbor, Adamu, had found him collapsed beside a pile of unfinished shoes, his hammer still in his hand. Adamu had shouted for help, but no one knew what to do. The village had no hospital, no ambulance, no equipment. The closest clinic was 30 kilometers away, and even if they carried him there, the doctor would likely say the same thing. He was too old, too weak, too far gone. So they did what they always did. They waited, they prayed, they prepared for a funeral. Musa's breathing grew shallow. His skin turned cold. The doctor, a tired man with kind eyes and empty hands, whispered to Adamu, "Prepare his family. There's nothing we can do." But Musa had no family, no wife, no children, no relatives who cared. Just a crumbling shop and a lifetime of giving away what little he had. The villagers loved him, yes, but love doesn't pay for medicine. Love doesn't stop death. Then the SUV arrived. The woman who stepped out was not from the village. She wore a crisp white blouse, dark trousers, and gold-rimmed glasses. Her skin glowed with the kind of health that comes from good food and clean water. She moved with the confidence of someone who had seen the world and conquered it. But her eyes were full of something the villagers hadn't seen in years. Urgency, desperation, love. She knelt beside Musa and placed her hand on his chest. "Musa," she whispered, "it's me, it's Ruth." His eyelids flickered. For a moment, something like recognition passed through his fading mind. But he didn't speak. He couldn't. The woman turned to the crowd. "Is there a stretcher? A bed? Anything?" Adamu stammered, We don't have. Who are you?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out her phone and made a call. Her voice was sharp, commanding. "I need an air ambulance at my location, now. Yes, I know it's expensive, I don't care. Just send it." Within 30 minutes, the sound of helicopter blades filled the sky. The villagers stood frozen as the helicopter landed in the clearing near the market. Dust swirled, goats scattered, children screamed with excitement. 2 paramedics jumped out, carrying equipment the village had never seen. They lifted Musa onto a stretcher, hooked him to machines, checked his pulse, his breathing, his blood pressure. Ruth climbed in beside him. Before the door closed, she looked at Adamu. "Tell everyone in this village," she said, her voice steady but fierce, "that Musa is not dying today, and when he comes back, things will be different." The helicopter lifted into the air. The crowd watched in stunned silence as it disappeared into the clouds. Adamu turned to the others, his face pale. Who was that woman? An old woman, bent with age, whispered, I think, I think that was the girl, the one he saved. Murmurs spread through the crowd. The girl, the one accused of theft, the one who disappeared years ago, the one everyone thought was dead or lost forever. But she wasn't lost. She had become something no one expected. And now she had returned. Not for revenge, not for glory, but to repay a debt that could never truly be repaid. As the helicopter vanished into the distance, the villagers stood in silence, staring at the empty sky. Adamu clenched his fists. What did he do? He whispered. What did that old man do to deserve this? The old woman smiled through her tears. He gave her everything when she had nothing, and now she's giving it all back. But the story didn't start there. It started years ago, in the same dusty village, in the same crumbling shop, with the same man who believed that kindness was the only currency that mattered. And it started with a girl who had lost everything and was about to lose even more. 15 years earlier, Musa sat in his shop, his stomach growling, his hands trembling from hunger. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. His last pair of shoes had sold for almost nothing, and the money went to buy medicine for a neighbour's sick child. Now his shelves were empty, his tools were old, his roof leaked when it rained. But he never complained. He never begged. He simply worked, hoped, and trusted that tomorrow would be better. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red. Musa was about to close the shop when he heard it, a soft, broken sound, crying. He stepped outside and saw her. A girl, no more than 14, sitting under a tree, her face buried in her hands. Her clothes were torn, her feet were bare and bleeding. She looked like she had run for miles. Musa approached slowly, his voice gentle. Are you hurt? She looked up, her eyes wide with fear. Please, she whispered, please don't send me back. Musa knelt beside her, ignoring the pain in his old knees. Send you back where? The girl's lips trembled. To my stepmother. She said I stole her jewelry. She said I'm a thief. She said she'll call the police and have me locked up. But I didn't steal anything, I swear. Tears poured down her face. No one believes me, no one. My father is dead. My mother is dead. She's the only one I have left, and she hates me. She wants me gone. She said I'm a curse. Musa's heart broke. He had seen this before. Orphaned children accused of things they didn't do, thrown out by relatives who didn't want them. The world was cruel to those who had no one to protect them. But Musa had something most people didn't. He had belief. I believe you, he said quietly. The girl stared at him, shocked. You do? Yes, Musa said. I believe you, and if you need help, I will help you. The girl's name was Ruth. Over the next hour, she told Musa everything. Her father had died in an accident 2 years ago. Her mother had passed from illness shortly after. Her stepmother, her father's second wife, had taken control of everything: the house, the money, the land. At first, she had tolerated Ruth. But then the stepmother's own children grew jealous. They wanted Ruth gone. So the stepmother made up a story. She claimed Ruth had stolen a gold necklace. She called Ruth a witch, a thief, a liar. She beat her. She locked her in a room for days without food. Finally, Ruth escaped. She ran until her feet bled, until she couldn't run anymore, and now she had nowhere to go. Musa listened in silence. When she finished, he stood up slowly. Come inside, he said. Ruth hesitated. I have no money. I can't pay you. Musa smiled sadly. I'm not asking you to. Inside the shop, Musa gave Ruth water, a piece of bread, and a blanket. She ate like she hadn't seen food in days. Then Musa did something that would change both their lives forever. He walked to the back of the shop, pulled out a small wooden box from under his bed, and opened it. Inside was money. Not much, but everything he had saved over the years. 3 years of cutting costs, skipping meals, and working late into the night. It was supposed to be for his own future, for the day when he could no longer work, for the day when his hands finally gave out. But as he looked at Ruth, her small body curled up on the floor, her eyes still wet with tears, he knew what he had to do. He placed the box in her hands. Ruth looked at it, confused. What is this? It's enough to get you to the city, Musa said. Enough to pay for a place to stay. Enough to get you started. Ruth's eyes widened. I can't take this. This is everything you have. And now it's everything you have, Musa interrupted gently. Use it well. Ruth stared at the money, then at Musa, then back at the money. Her hands shook. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me. Musa smiled. Because someone did the same for me once. And because kindness is the only thing we take with us when we die. Ruth broke down sobbing. She tried to refuse, but Musa wouldn't listen. He packed her a bag, gave her directions to the bus station, and told her to find a school, find work, and build a life. Don't come back until you've become someone, he said, and don't ever let anyone tell you you're worthless. Ruth left the next morning. Musa watched her disappear down the road, his heart full of hope and his stomach empty. He returned to his shop, sat down, and realized he had nothing left. But he didn't regret it. Not for a second. He believed he had done the right thing. What he didn't know was that this single act of kindness would one day save his life. But that day was far away, and in the years to come, Musa would suffer more than he ever imagined. Want to know what happened to Musa after Ruth left? How did he survive? And what did Ruth do with the money he gave her? Keep watching, because the next chapter will break your heart and show you the true cost of kindness. 5 years after Ruth left, Musa's life had fallen apart. His shop, once the pride of the village, now sagged like a dying animal. The roof had caved in on one side, the walls were cracked, the floor was covered in dust and rat droppings. His tools, once sharp and reliable, were rusted and broken. His hands, once steady, now shook from age and hunger. He barely had any customers anymore. The young people in the village bought cheap plastic shoes from the city. The old people who remembered him were dying off one by one. Musa had become invisible. He woke up every morning wondering if today would be the day he finally gave up. But something inside him refused to quit. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was hope, or maybe it was the memory of Ruth's face, the way she had looked at him with gratitude and disbelief, the way she had promised to make something of herself. He held on to that memory like a rope in a storm. But hope doesn't fill an empty stomach. Musa ate once a day, sometimes not at all. He boiled cassava peels and called it soup. He drank rainwater from a cracked bucket. His neighbours pitied him, but they had their own problems. Adamu brought him food when he could, but Adamu had 6 children and a sick wife. No one had extra. One evening, Musa collapsed while carrying water from the well. He lay on the ground, gasping, his vision blurred. A woman passing by helped him up. "You need to see a doctor," she said. Musa laughed bitterly. "With what money?" She didn't answer. She just walked away, shaking her head. Musa dragged himself back to the shop and lay on his mat. His chest hurt. His head pounded. He closed his eyes and wondered if he would wake up. But he did. And the next day, he went back to work. Because that's what he had always done. He worked. He endured. He believed that somehow things would get better. They didn't. Months passed. Musa's health worsened. His cough became constant. His body grew thinner. His neighbors whispered that he was cursed, that giving away all his money had brought bad luck. Some said he was a fool. Others said he was a saint. But no one helped. Not really. They prayed for him. They wished him well. But prayers don't pay rent. Wishes don't buy food. Musa was alone. One night, as he lay on his mat, staring at the ceiling, he thought about Ruth. He wondered if she was still alive. He wondered if she had made it to the city, if she had used the money wisely, if she had built a life. He wondered if she ever thought about him. He hoped she didn't. He didn't want her to feel guilty. He didn't want her to feel like she owed him anything. He just wanted her to be happy. That was enough. That had to be enough. But deep down, in a place he didn't like to admit, he wondered if his sacrifice had been worth it. He wondered if kindness really mattered in a world that rewarded greed and cruelty. He wondered if he had been a fool all along. Then, one afternoon, everything changed. Musa was sitting in his shop, half asleep, when a man in a clean shirt and polished shoes walked in. The man looked around, his nose wrinkling at the smell. "Are you Musa?" the man asked. Musa nodded slowly. "Yes. Who's asking?" The man pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I've been looking for you. I have a message." Musa's heart skipped. A message? From who? The man handed him the paper. "From someone who says you saved her life." Musa's hands trembled as he unfolded the paper. The handwriting was neat, careful. He read it once, then again, then a third time. His eyes filled with tears. The letter was from Ruth. She was alive. She had finished school. She had become a nurse. She was working in the city, saving money and building a life. And she had never forgotten him. The letter ended with a single line. "I will come back for you, I promise." Musa clutched the letter to his chest and sobbed. But the man wasn't finished. "She also sent this," he said, handing Musa an envelope. Inside was money. Not a lot, but enough to buy food for a month. Enough to fix his roof. Enough to remind him that he wasn't forgotten. Musa looked up at the man, tears streaming down his face. "Where is she?" "She's in the city," the man said. "She's still studying, but she wanted you to know she's thinking of you." The man left. Musa sat alone in his shop, holding the letter and the money, his heart full for the first time in years. He had been right. Kindness did matter. Sacrifice did matter. And Ruth had not forgotten. But what Musa didn't know was that Ruth was no longer just a nurse. She had bigger plans. And those plans included him. She was coming back. Not just to visit, but to change everything. What did Ruth become, and how did she repay the man who saved her life? The next chapter will shock you and show you the power of gratitude. Don't go anywhere, because the best part of this story is just beginning. 10 years after Ruth left, she stood in the operating room of a private hospital in Lagos, her hands steady, her focus absolute. The patient on the table was a government official who had been in a car accident. His family had flown in specialists from 3 countries, but none of them could do what Ruth could. She worked for 6 hours, cutting, stitching, repairing. When she finally stepped back, the man's heartbeat was strong. The surgery was a success. The family wept with gratitude. The hospital director shook her hand. "Dr. Adeyemi," he said, "you're a miracle worker." Ruth smiled politely, but inside she was thinking of someone else. Someone who had performed a different kind of miracle years ago. Someone who had saved her life without a scalpel or a degree. She thought of Musa, and she made a decision. It was time to go home. Ruth had come a long way since the day she arrived in the city with nothing but a bag and Musa's life savings. The first year had been brutal. She had rented a tiny room in a crowded neighborhood, survived on one meal a day, and worked as a cleaner at a school just to pay for her own education. She attended night classes, studied by candlelight, and refused to give up. The money Musa gave her lasted 6 months. After that, she was on her own, but she had learned something from Musa. Sacrifice was not weakness. Sacrifice was strength. So she sacrificed. She gave up sleep. She gave up friends. She gave up everything except her goal. She wanted to become someone, not for herself, for him. Years passed. Ruth finished secondary school at the top of her class. She earned a scholarship to university. She studied medicine, driven by a fire that never went out. Every time she wanted to quit, she thought of Musa's face, his gentle voice, his belief in her. And she kept going. Now, at 30 years old, Ruth was one of the most respected surgeons in the country. She had money, she had success, she had a name that people recognized, but none of it felt complete, because she had never gone back. She had sent letters, she had sent money, but she had never gone back to see him. She had told herself she was too busy, that she would visit when she had more time, when she had achieved more. But the truth was simpler. She was afraid that he would be disappointed, afraid that she hadn't done enough, afraid that the man who had given her everything would look at her and see someone ordinary. But after that surgery, something shifted. She realized she wasn't afraid of disappointing him. She was afraid of losing him. So she made arrangements. She called the hospital director and requested a month of leave. She hired a driver, packed her bags, and prepared to return to the village she had left 15 years ago. She didn't tell anyone she was coming. She wanted it to be a surprise. The drive took 2 days. Ruth watched the city fade into farmland, farmland fade into forest, forest fade into dust and memory. When the SUV finally rolled into the village, she felt her chest tighten. Everything was smaller than she remembered, poorer, sadder. But it was still home. She asked the driver to stop near the market. People stared at the expensive car, at the woman in clean clothes and gold jewelry. No one recognized her. She was a stranger now. Ruth walked through the village, her heart pounding. She passed the school where she used to fetch water. She passed the tree where she had cried the night Musa found her. And then she saw the shop, or what was left of it. The roof had collapsed, the walls were crumbling, the door hung off its hinges. Ruth's breath caught. "No," she whispered. She ran to the shop, her heels sinking into the dirt. "Musa," she shouted, "Musa!" But there was no answer, only silence. She pushed through the broken door and saw him. Musa lay on the floor, his body thin and frail, his chest barely moving. His eyes were closed, his skin was grey. For a moment, Ruth thought she was too late. She thought he was already gone. But then his chest rose, just a little, just enough. Ruth dropped to her knees beside him, her hands shaking. "Musa," she whispered, "it's me. It's Ruth." His eyes flickered open. For a moment, he stared at her, confused. Then, something like recognition passed through his gaze. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Ruth pulled out her phone and made the call. The helicopter, the hospital, the surgery. She would not let him die. She had come too far. She had fought too hard. She owed him everything. And now she was going to save his life the same way he had saved hers. What happens when Musa wakes up? Will he survive? And how will the village react when they discover who Ruth has become? The final chapter will leave you in tears and remind you why kindness is the greatest gift of all. Stay until the end, because this story's ending is unforgettable. Musa woke up 3 days later in a room so clean, so white, so quiet. He thought he had died and gone to heaven. He blinked slowly, his vision blurred. Machines beeped softly beside him. A tube was in his arm. The ceiling above him was smooth and bright. He tried to sit up, but his body wouldn't move. Then he heard a voice. "Don't move, you're still recovering." Musa turned his head. Ruth sat beside him, her eyes red from lack of sleep, her hand resting on his. She smiled, but tears rolled down her cheeks. "You're awake," she whispered. "Thank God you're awake." Musa stared at her, his mind struggling to understand. "Ruth," he croaked. "Yes," she said, squeezing his hand. "It's me. I came back, just like I promised." Musa's eyes filled with tears. I thought I was dying." "You were," Ruth said, "but not anymore. I won't let you." Over the next week, Ruth told him everything. How she had become a doctor, how she had searched for him, how she had arrived just in time. Musa listened in stunned silence, his heart full of emotions he couldn't name. Pride, gratitude, disbelief. "You did all that?" he whispered. "You became a doctor?" "Because of you," Ruth said firmly. "Because you believed in me when no one else did. Because you gave me a chance when I had nothing." Musa shook his head slowly. "I didn't do much. I just gave you some money." Ruth laughed, wiping her tears. "You gave me more than money. You gave me hope. You gave me a future. You gave me my life." She leaned closer. "And now I'm giving you yours back." She told him about the surgery she had performed, how she had repaired his heart, how she had paid for everything, how she had already made arrangements for his recovery. Musa wept. He had never felt so loved, so seen, so valued. But Ruth wasn't finished. 2 weeks later, after Musa was strong enough to travel, she drove him back to the village. The entire village gathered when they saw the SUV. Adamu pushed through the crowd, his eyes wide. "Musa, you're alive!" Musa smiled weakly. "I'm alive." Ruth stepped forward, her voice calm but commanding. "I want to thank all of you for taking care of him, but things are going to change now." She gestured to the construction crew behind her. "I've purchased land near the market. I'm building a shoemaking academy. It will train young people from this village and beyond, and Musa will oversee it." The crowd gasped. Ruth continued. "I've also bought Musa a new house, fully furnished, with electricity and running water. He will never struggle again." Adamu's jaw dropped. Who are you?" Ruth smiled. "I'm the girl Musa saved 15 years ago, and this is how I'm saying thank you." The academy was completed 6 months later. It was a beautiful building with modern equipment, classrooms, and workshops. Young people from across the region applied to learn the craft. Musa, now healthier and stronger, taught them everything he knew. He became a legend. The man who had given everything and received everything in return. Ruth visited often, always bringing gifts, always checking on him. And every time she visited, Musa would hold her hand and say the same thing. "I didn't do it for this. I did it because it was right." And Ruth would smile and reply, "I know. That's why you deserved it." The villagers called her an angel. They said she was proof that God rewards the kind. They told the story to their children, their grandchildren, their neighbors. The story of the poor shoemaker who gave his life savings to a girl he barely knew. And the story of the girl who came back and gave him a new life. Years later, when Musa finally passed away peacefully in his sleep, the entire country mourned. His funeral was attended by hundreds. Ruth gave the eulogy, her voice strong despite her tears. "This man taught me that kindness is not weakness," she said. "He taught me that giving is not losing. He taught me that the greatest wealth is not what you keep, but what you give away." She paused, looking at the crowd. "He saved my life, and in doing so he saved countless others. Because I became a doctor to honor him, I built the academy to honor him, and I will spend the rest of my life honoring him." The crowd wept. And when they buried Musa, they buried him not as a poor shoemaker, but as a king. Because that's what he was, a king of kindness, a king of sacrifice, a king who proved that love, not money, is the only currency that lasts forever. This is the story of Musa and Ruth, a story of kindness repaid, a story of sacrifice rewarded, a story that reminds us that no good deed is ever wasted. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the kindness you give today might just save your life tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, because stories like this are what the world needs more of.